countless celebrities have found themselves at the center of Hollywood controversies. Some stories disappear within days, while others continue resurfacing.
Imagine if I didn't learn anything. If it was 7 years, then I learned nothing. The house is being sold at auction. Really? So I have to go back to Baltimore and put all my things in storage. Really? So the answer to that question is, I'm not quite sure where I'm going to live now.
People realized. According to those online claims, he was allegedly aware of stories that never reached the public and was prepared to speak openly about them. Some internet users even speculate that before those claims could gain traction.
In July 2016, actor Kevin Spacey sexually assaulted my son.
Matter of debate. However, the timing has caused many people to revisit old interviews.
My son was a starstruck, straight, 18-year-old young man who had no idea that the famous actor was an alleged sexual predator, or that he was about to become his next victim.
In 2017, multiple allegations of sexual misconduct were made against Kevin Spacey. As more individuals came forward.
To Kevin Spacey, I want to say this. Shame on you for what you did to my son.
Production companies to distance themselves from the actor while major projects were either cancelled or completely recast. One of the most widely reported cases involved.
It's not just sleazy, it's predatorial. He did what he did because he knew he'd get away.
I imagine that many of you can understand that there's a lot for me to process after what has just happened today. But I would like to say that I'm enormously grateful to the jury for having taken the time to examine all of the evidence and all of the facts carefully before they reach their decision. And I am humbled by the outcome today.
For many observers, it seemed as though Hollywood had completely turned its back on one of its biggest stars. Yet the legal process continued. Investigations moved forward. Evidence was presented in court. Witnesses testified. And after years of legal proceedings, several of the most significant criminal cases concluded with verdicts that attracted worldwide attention. Kevin Spacey was ultimately acquitted in those proceedings, and he publicly thanked the juries for carefully reviewing the evidence before reaching their decisions. He expressed gratitude for the outcome while also acknowledging that the previous years had completely changed his life. Even after those verdicts, however, public opinion remained sharply
about the Harvey Weinstein drama. Did you have an immediate reaction to that?
Well, you know, I'm 55, he's 65. He became very famous at the same time my show was hitting. So I knew him and I knew of him, and these stories were not a surprise to me. And it's also just a problem of sexism in America. Just like racism is inherent, every time a football player kneels down, they're kneeling down to say racism is systemic in our nation. Well, so is sexism, and so is the belittlement of women by men in power, usually white men. So that it didn't surprise me. It's like we have to agree on the givens in America in order to solve the problem. And if the problem is why are women being abused at a horrible number, and why is this mass incarceration of African Americans, how is this the Jim Crow laws contemporized? You know, there's amazing stuff out there to read if you're interested, and we can, I believe, solve these issues if we're able to speak about them out in the open.
Those reports quickly spread across television, newspapers, podcasts, and social media, creating a sharp contrast between Ellen's public image and the experiences described by some former staff members. As criticism continued growing, more celebrities slowly began sharing their own opinions about Hollywood culture in general. Among them were Rosie and Kathy Griffin. Both women had spoken openly for years about powerful figures inside the entertainment industry, and many viewers started paying closer attention to interviews that had previously received little attention. According to supporters of current online theories, those interviews may now be viewed differently than they were at the time. Whether that's because new information...
Did your father deal with it in reality?
You know, not very well. He had his own issues and demons. He had a very tough childhood, an alcoholic, abusive father, and never really got the help that I think every person needs when they have lived through that as a child. The worst thing that can happen to anyone is to become what you loathe. And I think that he had a lot of problems to deal with in his own life, never mind being faced with raising these 5 small children. He did get a lot of empathy or sympathy from the local people in the town. Like, we'd go to church and they would all be like, oh, there's Ed O'Donnell, such a good man that he's doing, look, he's all those. He got a little bit heralded, you know, as this widower who was doing this great job raising the kids.
Now that you've had 4 kids yourself, have you been able to look back on him in a more favourable light, given the enormity of what was suddenly thrust upon him?
In some ways I do, but there was some, you know, there are some unforgivable things. I think that as a child, the statute of limitations, I think, has to wear off, right? You get to be 50 years old, you can't still be angry at what your father did in 1970. You have to work it out yourself and then find a place for it in your own life and not rehash it forever.
Have you reached that place?
I have. I've reframed it, and I've, you know...
Have you forgiven him in your mind?
I have, and he knows it, and I've told him that, and he's still alive. And I think he's still suffering, and that's a sad thing to me. Because no matter what, at the end of the day, every child loves their dad and their mom. They do. It's innate. I would go to McLaren Hall, which was a place that was open in LA for children in protective custody. First time I went there was a little boy and his hand was bandaged. And I said to him, hey buddy, how you doing? He said, good. He was like 6. I said, what do you want for Christmas? He said, only to see my mommy. And I said, I'm sure you will, little man. When I walked out, one of the social workers said to me, his mother held his hand to the stove and burnt his fingers off. And what that child wanted was his mother. So no matter what, every child wants their parents to love them and to be in their life. And I think it's a very hard thing when stuff occurs that makes that almost impossible.
Someone didn't speak sooner, but that question rarely considers fear, trauma, or the imbalance of power that can exist in those situations. Rather than focusing on one celebrity, Rosie described what she believed was a much larger cultural problem. She argued that powerful people often have access to resources, influence, and support systems that make it extremely difficult for accusations to surface without significant personal consequences for those speaking out. Those comments gained new attention as audiences revisited older interviews searching for patterns they may have overlooked the first time. At the same time, Kathy Griffin was also becoming part of the conversation. Over the years, Kathy had spoken openly about her own experiences in Hollywood and her belief that the entertainment industry could be extremely unforgiving toward people who challenged influential figures. Although Rosie and Kathy approached these subjects differently, many online...
The Post is here in Brunswick, Georgia at the Stambach Airport, and we're inside Jeffrey Epstein's 727 plane that has been called the Lolita Express. Right when you first walk in, there's a bathroom, and here you can see some of the items that remain from when it was owned by Jeffrey Epstein. There are monogrammed paper towels that show the name of the plane, as well as Jeffrey Epstein's initials, obviously. And then we have a baby powder bottle, disturbingly, underneath the sink in this main bathroom, as well as just other random kind of toiletries and items. In the bedroom, which is what you walk into next, there's still some covers on the bed, but there's dead bugs on them now. This is definitely a deteriorated, falling apart jet that's just been sitting here unused for almost 10 years. But interestingly, in the top drawer of the nightstand, there's a satellite phone. And then you kind of come into the galley here. We have coffee, just instant coffee. Most of these things are just empty. Again, this has been sitting here unused for almost 10 years. It'll be 10 years this summer. And a lot of what's in these drawers is just like random. A lot of them are empty, but some have like plastic bags or garbage bags, especially as you...
Focused on documents connected to Jeffrey Epstein, internet users began searching through old flight records, interviews, photographs, and media reports involving numerous public figures.
Former President Bill Clinton and Britain's Prince Andrew.
On almost every trip that I did, there were young girls around.
In this Inside Edition exclusive, Shantae Davies takes us inside the secret world of the Lolita Express, named for the controversial book and movie about a professor's infatuation with an underage girl. Sean made several trips on Jeffrey Epstein's infamous Lolita Express. She says she was one of several young, attractive women hired to travel around the world, giving massages or yoga instruction to Epstein and his rich and powerful friends. When Shantae was hired, she was a struggling 22-year-old actress. She once played a lingerie model in a movie called Exposed.
Designs are really great.
Shantae worked as a masseuse, but says she never had sex with Epstein.
Ever think that maybe more was going on than simple massages?
Looking back, of course.
Was there a bed on the airplane?
Actually, yes, there was. Yeah.
On one memorable flight on board like this provided by Air Hollywood, she says she made peanut butter and jelly sandwiches for passengers, including Oscar winner Kevin Spacey, actor Chris Tucker, and even Bill Clinton. They were all flying to Africa on a humanitarian mission, and Jeffrey Epstein had given them the use of his jet.
So you never gave President Clinton a massage?
No, I didn't.
Shantae says when the plane landed in Africa, Clinton took her shopping, but she says nothing improper occurred.
They had shut down a jewelry store for us, and I helped him pick out a bracelet for Chelsea.
It was a jet-set lifestyle for sure.
It wasn't a recent statement. Instead, people began revisiting years of public records, old photographs, television appearances, and archived news reports, hoping to understand whether there were connections that had gone unnoticed at the time. One subject appeared repeatedly throughout those discussions: Jeffrey Epstein. Following Epstein's arrest in 2019 and his death later that year, media organizations around the world published extensive reporting about his associates, his social circle, and the investigations surrounding his activities. Public interest remained extremely high, and countless creators online started examining anything they believed could add context to the story. As expected, the internet quickly filled with theories. Some were based on publicly available documents. Others relied almost entirely on speculation. The challenge was that Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.